Okay, so it's Cigar Mile Day at Aqueduct this Saturday, and with it comes a pretty good all stakes pick three. It's races 7 through 9, and we're going to start with leg one, which is the Remsen, and it would be awful hard to replicate or come close to the magic of last year's race with Sierra Leone and Dornoch going head to head down the stretch, but. It's an interesting race, nonetheless. It is the first two-turn effort for the majority of these two-year-olds, going a mile and an eighth, which is certainly the farthest any of them are going to go this year. And it's an interesting field. I don't think it's really anywhere close to the level of class we had last year, but there are some intriguing prospects nonetheless. We're going to go through them one at a time. We'll start with Tux. Certainly the pedigree is right for the stretch out, but this is a really big stretch out from 6.5 furlongs in the maiden win to a mile and an eighth. And it's not like Bill Mott to do this. So that would, to me, be a positive that he's got a lot of, he's got a pretty high opinion of this horse. Usually, he'll bring him along slowly and follow that usual progression from one turn to two. So to me, it's a little, it's a little puzzling knowing how Bill Mott normally progresses his horses. But this one had a solid win and debut and showed grit in the stretch, and that's what I really liked. But again, the real big step up distance wise, but have to trust Bill Mott in these type of instances. And I'd like to see a bigger progression before going into a graded stakes at a mile and an eighth. So a lot of first here, two turns, first stakes race. But I think that again, we're relying on Bill Mott here and what he sees, and I don't think he'd put this horse in this race unless he thought there was a good chance he could win it. So we'll use Tux for sure. Aviator Gee is the other Chad Brown, and of course we always have to pay attention to them. But this one is pretty interesting. I really like the bottom that this one gets from the two prior races, and I think that turf effort last time was in the AWOD was intended to get him some two-turn experience. So again, I think that's a real big positive. And Chad Brown is a strategist, and so he had to know or had to think that a lot of times for two-year-olds they can't get around two turns unless they run on the turf, and this may be an example of that. And it's to build a bottom for this race, and I'll bet you that's exactly what the thinking was. This one seems a bit of a grinder, and that may bode well in this field that doesn't have a whole lot of pace, and it may be the horses who just keep going, and I think this is one that will. I like the back class. This one had a key race a couple back, and I think represents at 6-1 some really good value, and I think this is a real sleeper in this race. Excuse me. Number 3, Poster. I just can't like a Munnings around two turns on dirt. That's really the big problem for me. Despite the presence of Flavian Pratt and Godolphin, and we know they're just loaded this year, this one had a couple of good efforts on the grass, but it is easier to carry your speed on the grass than it is on dirt. You've got to work a lot harder running on dirt, and Munnings just don't do two turns terribly well, and that's really the knock that I think excludes Poster from my consideration, and likely going to be overbet because of Godolphin and Flavian Pratt. So I'm going to pass on Poster. Number 4, Studley Do Right. I mean, the thing is here, I really don't like the fact that John Robb sent this horse back to the local circuit after bombing out in the Hopeful. And that kind of tells me that, wanted some easier fields, some easier paydays, and that maybe he gets the feeling this horse isn't really top class. He's still a very serviceable horse. He tries every time, and you have to like that. And he does have the pedigree for two turns. So I think he's definitely a contender here. I'm just not sure of the class. However, it is a soft field. I just kind of Like others, a little better for on top. I think he's a must-use underneath, though. Uh, Number five, Keyweight In is my pick to win this. This one has faced some really nice competition, including holding his own against rookie card and Tip Top Thomas in the debut. And that one may turn out to be a key race uh, for our Derby consideration. Those are two really good horses, and he did really well against them. I'm not completely sold on his pedigree. That's really the only thing that is a bit of a hesitation, but I think he likely has the class to get the trip here. May inherit the lead, which may or may not be ideal here. Not overly certain of the race shape, but I think he's good enough, and he just may be the best horse, and certainly has an edge speed figure wise, and so being on the lead would be a really good place for him. So Keyweight In to me is the pick to win this. Surfside Moon, I really couldn't find much to like, and I'm just going to pass on him. Now, Gun Trader, really the only appeal for me is the bottom from multiple two-turn races, but this one just isn't fast enough. If you wanted to think about maybe underneath to spice up the exotics, but I don't consider to be a player here. So to me, Keyweight In is the one to beat, and Tux is a little short for this type of move here, but to me, Aviator Gee is really the one to think about as a potential alternative to Keyweight In. Leg 2 is the Demoiselle, and it's the female counterpart to the Remsen. It's the 8th race, running a mile and an eighth for 2-year-old fillies. And this one, we've got an overwhelming morning line favorite in Mohima at 4-5 on the rail. This is another one that's by money. He's going around 2 turns on the dirt for Brad Cox, and we know he's great with first-time routes for 2-year-olds in particular. This one was very impressive in the last race for sure, and has been really solid in both. And it's nitpicking, I admit, but her class rating didn't improve from the maiden win to the next start, and the competition was only average. The thing that bothers me, of course, is Munnings. Just around 2 turns, they're just not as effective as they are around 1 on dirt. And that really gives me a lot of pause here. I just, this horse certainly appears to have some class, but is it enough that she can carry all of these around the track? And I tend to believe not. And at 4-5, I just can't do it. I'm going to have to try to beat, and I think we've got one that can, and we'll get to that. Number 2, Liam in the Dust. Plenty of early lick, but just not enough late. And the main role I think that Liam in the Dust plays here is to soften up Mohima up on the early end, on the front end early in the race. But otherwise, she's a pass. Fortuna Mia had a career-high Brisnet off the bench, and that's always a good sign, and particularly when stretching out. The concern is kind of like Mohima. Vacomas so far haven't been overly impressive around 2 turns. So that to me is the concern. In the Tempted, she looked like a horse who needed one. So I think an improved effort is expected, particularly for Linda Rice, who's 21% second off the layoff. This one I think is, if it wasn't for being by Vacoma, I would like a lot more, but at 15-1, I think you're getting a good price. To me, probably more one to round out the exotics, but I think there's one that you can use, and has an outside chance if Mohima falters, which I think is possible. Number 4, Carmen's Candy Jar. The last 3 starts really haven't shown much in the way of improvement, and of course that's always a big concern, particularly for a Todd Pletcher trainee. The 2 turns is definitely going to help a horse who's by Vino Rosso, without a doubt. But she looks kind of one-paced for me, so underneath seems likely to me, if at all. And I just kind of like others better. And as a late runner, I think Ballerina Doro makes more sense to me. This kind of looks to me like one that maybe Mike Rapoli stepped in and said, put her in because it's a graded stakes in New York. I don't know. I just not that psyched up about Carmen's Candy Jar. Number 5, Michelle is stretching out off a pretty nice maiden score, but she really didn't beat very much. And Brittany Russell is 19% with first-time routers, but I'd rather wait one here, despite the presence of Katie Happy Davis, as I have dubbed her. Who else? What other name could she have? She's just a joy. Love to see Katie. Rooting hard for her, but I don't think she's got the right fit here. I'm going to pass on Michelle. Now, number 6, Bless the Broken. I really like this horse. That last race was extremely impressive to me. The optional claimer for 100. She broke well before getting pinched up amongst the leaders, so she had to take back. But this horse re-rallied 4 wide in the stretch for a gritty second around 2 turns at Churchill Downs. That was just, to me, an incredibly impressive effort. It looks to me like a horse who is finding it, is getting there, and I'm expecting a peak effort third off the layoff, and you're getting 12-1. And particularly when you have a favorite who may be a little suspect around 2 turns, I think Bless the Broken makes a lot of sense, and that's what I'm going with here. Number 7, 5-a-side. I didn't like the Tempted Stakes at all. And all the better efforts have been at slow fractions around 1 turn, which is a little suspect as well. And this one being by Spun to Run really doesn't help the cause for me around 2 turns, so I'll pass on 5-a-side. Beauty Reigns is kind of a carbon copy of Tux in the Remsen. Another one for Bill Mott stretching out after a maiden score at 6.5 furlongs. I really liked the effort. She was extremely game in debut, fought off a challenge basically all the way around the track. And again, we'll trust Bill Mott that he feels that this one can handle 2 turns. Our pedigree screams it without a doubt. And I think certainly Beauty Reigns is a prime win candidate in here. And one we'll definitely be using on our tickets. Number 9, Tip Line, C5-a-side. Pretty much the same thing. Really didn't like it, and can't see much in the way of using Tip Line at all. Now, Ballerina d'Oro, this is another one with plenty of 2-turn experience on the grass for Chad Brown. And again, I think this is an instance where getting this one around 2 turns, having to do so on the grass early on in the 2-year-old career, but the pedigree says dirt without a problem at all, and I don't think that's going to be an issue. The main concern I have is that this one's a little slow to get going out of the gate and appears to be a bit of a grinder. And I don't know here where that necessarily bodes well given the race shape here. However, I think this is a solid horse to use at 8-1. But probably more for underneath. But 2 turns is definitely going to be what Ballerina d'Oro likes. So we're going to go off the reservation here and try to beat Mohima. And I think Bless the Broken is possibly the horse to do it. The last leg of the All-Stakes Pick 3 is, of course, the Cigar Mile. It's a Grade 2, 9th race. Run at a mile around 1 turn at Aqueduct for 3-year-olds and up. And this is a nice field. This is got plenty of stakes level performers, and it's a full field. So this should definitely be a fun race for sure. And we'll take a look at them one at a time. And we'll start with number 1, Bookham Dano. This is a 3-year-old running against older for the first time. And the thing about Bookham Dano that I notice is that he doesn't appear to have another move in him. In other words, I think he's pretty much, we know what he is at this point, and that's what we've got. It's not to say that he can't be competitive in this field, because I think he can. However, you got a lot of horses who like to do what he does, and they're a little saltier, and that kind of turns me off to Bookham Dano, especially at 4-1. I can sort of see him finding his way into the exotics, but I think this may be a little bit of a tall order, especially when you consider the pace scenario is probably going to be pretty live, particularly with the presence of Pipeline in the race in Nelson Avenue. So To me, I'm going to let him go because really just he's an underlay to me at 4-1. Number 2, Nelson Avenue has been showing improved early speed since he's been under Wayne Potts' care. But he's stepping up now against what is a pretty tough field, and there's a lot of graded stakes performers in here. Being on the lead, trying to vie with Pipeline, I think certainly compromises his chances, and I don't really like him here, so he's another one I'm not going to bother with. Kind of the same thing for Repo Rocks. In particular, his form has declined over the last 3 races. And I would think at his best effort, Repo Rocks would kind of be a fringe player in this race. So he's another one, particularly with the presence of other early speed. I don't like here at all, so I'm going to let go as well. Vinsanity, that's just a pass. I don't see anything redeeming about this horse here, so I'm just going to, he's the easiest toss of the group. Now, Mulligan presents, to me, is a horse that there's a lot of reasons to bet against here. One of the big angles that we use is getting horses after their Breeders' Cup performance. It's their peak effort of the year. It's what they build to all year. And Mulligan is no exception. He ran a good third in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. But you'd have to think that a letdown is pretty imminent. He's had a long series of tough races. He has answered the class questions that we might have had with him. And I think, around 1 turn at a mile, I think he can handle the distance, and I think he's competitive in this group. But I really don't like that tab. There's a big gap between the works, and that to me sort of seems like that this may be kind of like an afterthought type of race, maybe an owner's decision to throw him in there. I just think he's a bet against at this stage of the year with this kind of field, and particularly with the likes of Pipeline and Nelson Avenue. They're definitely going to soften him up. Conversely, he could wire this field. It's possible, but I think there's a lot of things to say that's probably not likely. So it's not out of the question. I just like others better here for the reasons stated. So Mulligan, I think you can use, but I'm not sure his best is forthcoming. Number 6, Law Professor, is a horse for the course. He's got 5 wins and 7 out of 7 in the money finishes at Aqueduct. But he's just a cut below here. You've also got to consider he's going to be coming from off the pace, and there's quite a few other late runners signed on here. And that's never good, particularly when there's some class questions. So I think he could stumble his way into under at 15-1. That certainly would fatten up your try or your super. But that would be the extent of my interest here. Number 7, Locked, is my pick to win this race. And I have always really liked this horse since his maiden at Saratoga. He demonstrated excellent acceleration. And it was really a shame he had to go to the bench and miss the Derby trail. But this one came off the bench against Older for the first time after a long layoff and had a solid, if not spectacular, win against inferior compared to here. But you do also see a nice set of works showing that he is, getting into form. He's coming in second off the layoff, and he's fresher than most of these who have been running in graded stakes races all year. I think he's definitely competitive with these, and I think that last race shows that that he's building towards another race, and I think this is it. So at 9-2, I think he's an excellent price, and there's a lot of things to like about him here. Particularly, you get Johnny V as an added bonus. I like Locked in this spot a lot, for sure. As mentioned, number 8, Pipeline, is the speed of the speed. And really, he's only going to serve to soften up Mulligan, in my opinion. I've never really liked this horse. He's only got one way to go, and he's never there at the finish. And changing trainers to Cherie DeVoe from Chad Brown, I don't think has made that much of a difference, and I'll pass on him. Senior Buscador is very interesting, of course. He was second in this race last year after the Breeders' Cup, which is certainly a positive. And he's around 1 turn where he may be more effective than he is around 2. You have to use him, without a doubt. He's definitely going to have some pace to run to here, and I think he looks to be maintained his form okay. It's just a little bit of a concern post Breeders' Cup, but I think Senior Buscador with pace to run to certainly one to think about. Coastal Mission, I went back and forth with this one because he is in good form and he's got that rating style that would be a good fit here given all the other early pace, getting a tactical jump, but ultimately he's just a cut below. And he barely beat Nelson Avenue in the 49er, and I didn't like Nelson Avenue here. So Coastal Mission, you want to throw him underneath, okay, but that would be the extent of it. I don't think he's a solid win candidate here. Now, number 11, Post Time. I mean, what can you say about this horse? He's 14 for 14 in the money with 9 wins. I mean, this just, if you don't like Post Time as a horse, you don't like horse racing. But that said, we did wonder about him around 2 turns. We wondered about him class-wise, and he's answered both questions this year. But he's always seemed to be the bridesmaid. He never seems to be able to get over the top, and I think he's probably going to be a little lacking here. I think there's a lot of reasons to like him. But, you have to have those same post-Breeders' Cup concerns as you do with Mulligan. But the thing is, the tab shows good fitness. He's continued to work steadily, and he loves to compete. So Post Time, to me, is definitely one to use. However, if I have to choose between him and Senior Buscador, Senior Buscador, to me, offers a much better value at 6-1. Nonetheless, Locked is my pick to win what should be a pretty lively Cigar Mile. So we look at our ticket, and here's the deal. Okay, this is a pick 3. And so, to me, I think of all the, exotic bets, I mean, when I do a daily double, I won't do it unless I have a single. And pick 3s are kind of the same thing. I've created a signal for this one, single, mainly because this does have the potential to come up chalky, and I want to get some return for my value. And certainly at a $1 base, that's the minimum I would invest, but you could certainly go a lot deeper in this one to get a higher ROI. And so to me, the Remsen is the one that really is the one you have to spread in. I think there's a lot of ways to go. The race shape isn't defined, and it's just, there's a lot of unknowns with this race. So we are going to go with key weight in as our pick to win it, but we're going to spread with 1, 2, as well as the 5. Now, because it's a pick 3, and I want a single, I'm going to take the wildest one of all, and I'm just going to go with Bless the Broken. I need value for this to pay, and 12-1 is outstanding value, and I really like what I saw from Bless the Broken, so I'm going to single the 6. If it hits, great. If not, hey, that's life. But I don't see any point in spreading too terribly deep in a pick 3, so I'm just going to roll with what I consider to be the one that looks the best to me, and that's Bless the Broken in the Demoiselle. Now, in the Cigar Mile, I think Mulligan can win this race, but I really like Locked in this spot. If you want to spread a little bit more and throw in Senior Buscador, I can understand it. But to me, if Mulligan runs his race on the front end, he should be able to handle some of the other speeds in here. Then he can win this race on the front end, and everybody's playing catch up. But given the reasons we stated about the Breeders' Cup hangover, I think just Locked, it just looks awful good to me for Locked. So to me, it's Mulligan or Locked, and with a heavy emphasis on Locked, and I could even see singling. And so not a real imaginative ticket, except if you want to consider getting creative in the Demoiselle. So we'll go 3 times 1 times 2 is a $6 ticket, and we're basically just going to go for it and not leave a lot to chance. It either hits or it doesn't, and I think this is a good way to go. for this particular sequence. So I hope our analysis helps you with your own wagering strategy, and I wish you the best of luck as always. If you do like content like this, of course, please like and subscribe. There's going to be a lot more content to end the year, particularly when it concerns the Derby and the Oaks. We intend to have a lot of videos concerning that, so be on the lookout. And we'll continue with the Malibu coming up, as well as all the races, important stakes races to end the year. So that's it from here. I'll talk to you soon, and until then, be well.